Welcome back to another episode of Valuable Coins, where we dive deep into the world of numismatics, uncovering the most valuable and unique coins in the market today. If you're a coin enthusiast, collector, or simply interested in the incredible value of rare coins, you're in the right place. In today's video, we will explore two of the most fascinating and expensive United States coins currently circulating the auction market. First up, the Lincoln Wheat Penny is one of the most beloved coins in American history. And today, we are going to take a close look at one specific date that continues to capture the interest of collectors. We are talking about the 1950 Lincoln Wheat Penny struck in Philadelphia, without a mint mark, and we will be focusing on an example in extra fine condition. Even though this coin may not sound like a fortune, it holds history, collector interest, and a story worth sharing, especially when we talk about its value in today's market. The Lincoln Wheat Penny series began in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was designed by Victor David Brenner, and it became the first U.S. circulating coin to feature a real person. On the obverse, we see the familiar portrait of Lincoln, and on the reverse, we see two stalks of wheat, which gave this series the nickname Wheat Penny. The design ran until 1958, making it one of the longest and most collected small cent series in the United States. By 1950, the Wheat Penny was a familiar sight in circulation. That year, the Philadelphia Mint produced an enormous number of coins, over 272 million examples. Because of such a high mintage, the 1950 penny without a mint mark is not considered rare. Most circulated examples can still be found in pocket change or in bulk coin lots today. However, the real difference in value comes from condition, color, and whether any errors are present. Now let's talk about grading. Extra fine, often abbreviated as XF or EF, is a mid-level grade. An extra fine coin shows light wear on the high points of Lincoln's hair, cheek, and jaw, but all of the main details remain sharp and bold. The wheat stalks on the reverse will still show definition, although some of the fine lines may be worn down. An XF coin is attractive to many collectors who want a nice piece for a typeset, but do not want to pay uncirculated prices. So what is a 1950 Lincoln Wheat Penny without a mint mark in extra fine condition worth in today's market? According to current coin value guides, these coins generally sell for around 6 to 10 cents. In other words, about double face value, but still very modest. It is important to remember that value is strongly linked to supply and demand. Because there are millions of these coins still in circulation and in collections, the price remains low. For most collectors, this date is very easy to obtain, which keeps the market affordable. However, not all 1950 pennies are equal. If a coin is found in about uncirculated or mint state, especially with full red luster, values increase significantly. In uncirculated grades, prices range from $1 up to $2.50 depending on eye appeal and color. Coins graded at higher mint state levels, particularly MS65 red or better, can sell for far more at auctions. Proof coins, struck with special dies and sold directly to collectors, can be worth upwards of $80 or more depending on condition. That is where the true premium lies for this year. Another factor to consider is error coins. While the 1950 Philadelphia cent does not have any famously rare varieties like the 1955 doubled die, collectors always watch for minor die cracks, off-center strikes, or even repunched mint marks from the Denver and San Francisco issues of the same year. Although errors from the Philadelphia Mint are less common, if one is discovered, it can raise the value dramatically. So when we narrow back down to our coin in extra fine condition, the financial value is not large, but that does not mean that coin is unimportant. Every wheat penny tells a piece of history. A 1950 penny circulated during the years just after World War II, when America was entering a new era of growth and prosperity. It may have passed through the hands of veterans, farmers, or children buying candy for a penny apiece. Holding one of these coins connects us to that moment in time. For collectors, keeping a 1950 Lincoln wheat penny in extra fine condition is still worthwhile. It completes a set, it shows the design clearly, and it has historical interest. If you happen to find one that looks particularly sharp, it might be worth comparing it to professional grading standards, because what you see as extra fine might actually be about uncirculated, which would increase its market value slightly. The Washington quarter has been a staple of American coinage for nearly a century and among collectors. Even the more modern dates from the 1980s have started to draw attention. Today, we will take a closer look at the 1981 Washington quarter dollar with the Denver mint mark, the large date variety in a black-colored shade and dirty condition. While at first glance it may seem like just another quarter, this coin holds history, details worth knowing, and a real-world value in today's auction market. The Washington Quarter series began in 1932, designed by sculptor John Flanagan to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The obverse features the profile of Washington, while the reverse originally showed a heraldic eagle. These coins were produced in 90% silver only until 1964, after which the mint transitioned to a copper-nickel-clad composition for regular circulation strikes. That means by the time 1981 quarters were made, none of them were silver for circulation. Instead, they were clad coins with a copper core and a nickel outer layer. The only silver Washington quarters of this period came from special collector-proof sets. The Denver Mint produced over 575 million Washington quarters in 1981. With such a high mintage, this date is not rare in general. Almost all 1981 quarters we see today are circulation strikes that have been used in everyday commerce for decades. Coins in circulated and dirty condition, especially those with dark toning or a black shade from years of wear and exposure, are considered common. Collectors usually seek out higher-grade examples or certified mint-state coins, since those have survived without the heavy handling most quarters endured. Now, let's look at condition. The example we are talking about is described as dirty, with a black shade and in circulated condition. That means the coin has been exposed to years of handling, oils from skin, environmental conditions, and possibly improper storage. Over time, clad quarters often take on a dark or even black appearance, especially if they were left in damp places, exposed to air pollutants, or mixed in with other coins. While toning and natural color changes can sometimes add collector appeal, in most cases, heavy black discoloration is considered unattractive and lowers value. Scratches, dirt, and overall will all push the coin firmly into the low circulated category. So what is a 1980 1D Washington quarter like this worth in today's auction market for a coin in dirty, circulated condition with discoloration? The value is typically face value, which is 25 cents. In most auctions, these coins sell only as part of bulk lots because individual worn examples do not attract collector bids. Dealers and collectors often purchase rolls or bags of circulated state or Washington quarters at face or slightly above face value. However, if a coin is particularly sharp or has an unusual error, it can be worth more. For comparison, let's consider the full range of value for the 1981 1D quarter. A circulated example in average condition is worth about its face value of 25 cents. A lightly circulated or about uncirculated coin may sell for 50 cents to $1. Uncirculated examples, graded MS60 through MS63, often trade for $1 to $2. Higher mint state grades, like MS65 or MS66, can bring $5 to $20, depending on luster and strike. The highest graded certified coins with bright surfaces may sell for over $100 at major auctions. Because condition rarity drives value in modern coins, Proof examples from 1981 struck in San Francisco, especially in silver, are worth even more. Usually $10 to $20 for clad proofs and higher for silver versions. Another important detail for collectors is errors. Some Washington quarters from the 1980s feature striking errors such as off-center strikes, double dies, or clipped planchets. The 1981D quarter with such an error is found. Even in circulated condition, it could be worth much more than face value. This is why collectors always recommend carefully examining your coins before dismissing them as common change. Historically, the 1981 Washington quarter also represents the last years before the massive changes in the quarter program. Just over a decade later, the U.S. Mint launched the 50-state quarters program in 1999, which completely changed public interest in quarters and brought millions of new collectors into the hobby. The earlier clad quarters from the 1970s and 1980s, while common, are becoming increasingly interesting to those who build complete sets. Even a worn example like the one we are discussing can still find a place in a collection as a filler until a better example is found. Next up, the Lincoln Wheat Penny is one of the most iconic and collected coins in American history. And the 1916 edition is a particularly interesting piece for both casual collectors and history enthusiasts. Today, we are going to talk about the 1916 Lincoln Wheat Penny struck in Philadelphia, the version without a mint mark. And we will focus on one that is in a dirty condition with scratches, which is what many people encounter when they find old pennies in change jars, coin rolls, or family collections. Even though the coin may not appear impressive at first glance, it holds an important place in American numismatics and still carries value in today's market. The Wheat Penny series started in 1909 to mark the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Victor David Brenner designed the coin featuring Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and 2 wheat stalks framing the denomination on the reverse. This design ran until 1958, and during that time, hundreds of millions of coins were struck. But each year has its own story, mintage, and value. The 1916 penny falls into the early years of the series, making it over a century old today, and age alone adds to its charm and collectability. In 1916, the Philadelphia Mint produced more than 131 million Lincoln cents, 'cause there is no mint mark on Philadelphia issues. These coins appear with only the date and design. While that may sound like a high number, we have to remember that more than 100 years have passed since these coins entered circulation. Many have been worn down, damaged, or melted over time, and far fewer survive in high quality. That is why even though the 1916 penny is not considered rare in lower grades, nicer examples always bring more attention and higher prices in the market. Now, let's talk about condition. When a coin is described as being in dirty condition with scratches, it means it has heavy circulation wear and surface problems that bring its grade down. Dirt, discoloration, and scratches reduce eye appeal. And graders at professional services like PCGS or NGC would usually place such a coin in the low circulated range, perhaps good to very good, sometimes even lower if the damage is severe. Collectors often call these coins problem coins, which makes them less desirable to advanced buyers, though they still carry historical interest and a small premium over face value. So what is a 1916 Lincoln Wheat Penny without mint mark worth in today's market if it is in dirty condition with scratches? In average circulated grades, most price guides suggest a value of around 20 cents to $1. A damaged example with heavy scratches might be closer to the lower end of that range, perhaps around 15 to 25 cents. That is still more than its 1 cent face value, but it is modest compared to higher grade examples. For comparison, a 1916 penny in fine condition can be worth about $2 to $3. In extremely fine condition, around $5 to $7. And uncirculated examples in mint state can bring anywhere from $50 up to several hundred, depending on color and grade. Red mint state coins, the brightest and most attractive, are the most valuable. Another important thing to note is that error. Coins or special varieties can dramatically increase value. While the Philadelphia 1916 penny does not have any major listed errors that are famous like the 1955 doubled die, collectors do pay attention to repunch dates, die cracks, or off-center strikes. If such an error were found on a coin, even in dirty condition, it might still fetch a premium above its regular market value. It is also worth remembering that every coin tells a story. A 1916 penny would have circulated during World War I, a time of major change in America and the world. It may have been used in a corner store, dropped into a savings jar, or passed through countless hands over decades before finally ending up in a collection today. Even a coin with scratches and dirt is a piece of living history, linking us to the people who used it more than a century ago. For collectors, finding a 1916 wheat penny is always a thrill, even in rough condition. It adds depth to a collection, shows the early years of the series, and is affordable enough that anyone can own a piece of history. While serious collectors may hold out for higher grades, beginning collectors often start with circulated coins like this because they are inexpensive and widely available. Next up, the 1995 Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint. The coin we're discussing is described as being in red color shade, in fine condition, and showing some scratches. While it may look like a unique piece of change, it's important to understand its history, its design, and its real value in today's market. The Washington Quarter series began in 1932, when John Flanagan's portrait of George Washington was chosen to mark the bicentennial of Washington's birth. The obverse shows Washington's profile, while the reverse features the heraldic eagle with outstretched wings. This design remained in use all the way until 1998, making the 1995 quarter part of the final group of years before the 50 state. Quarters program transformed U.S. coinage starting in 1999. In 1995, the Denver Mint struck over 1.1 billion quarters. With such a massive mintage, the 1995D is one of the most common quarters of the entire series. Because so many were made and circulated, they are still found in pocket change every day. Coins in fine condition with scratches, like the one described here, fall into the category of circulated pieces that have seen years of use. Now, let's address an important point about composition. Circulation strike quarters from 1995, whether from Denver or Philadelphia, were not made of silver. They were clad coins with a copper core and a copper-nickel outer layer. The only 1995 quarters struck in silver were special collector-proof coins, minted in San Francisco with an S mint mark. These silver proofs were sold directly to collectors as part of special proof sets, not released into circulation. So, if your coin has D mint mark, it is clad, not silver. The coin in question is described as having a red shade. Quarters can develop unusual colors from exposure to the environment. Copper from the core can sometimes bleed through the outer layer. If the coin is damaged or heavily corroded, giving it reddish tones. Storage conditions, chemicals, or even heat can also cause a coin to take on red, black, or rainbow shades, while some natural toning can add collector appeal. Heavy color changes or stains, especially combined with scratches, usually reduce value. In terms of condition, fine grade means the coin has moderate to heavy wear. The main design elements are still visible, but much of the finer detail has been worn smooth. On the obverse, Washington's hair and face will appear flattened, and the rims may show some weakness. On the reverse, the eagle will be visible, but feathered details will be missing. The scratches further lower the grade, making the coin less appealing to collectors. So, What is a 1995D Washington quarter in fine condition with scratches worth in today's auction market? In most cases, it is worth its face value of 25 cents. These are extremely common coins, and unless they are in high mint state grades or feature unusual errors, circulated examples are not valuable. In bulk lots, coins like this are traded by the roll or by the pound, usually at or just slightly above face value. For comparison, let's look at the value range for 1995D quarters. Circulated examples, even in higher grades, are typically worth only face value. About uncirculated coins might bring 30 to 50 cents. Uncirculated mint state coins begin to attract premiums, with MS-63 pieces often selling for $1 to $2. MS-65 examples can bring around $5 to $10. The very highest grade coins, certified at MS-67, can command auction prices well above $100. Since so few survive in pristine condition out of the massive mintage, collectors also keep an eye out for error coins. Some 1995D quarters show mint errors like off-center strikes, clipped planchettes, or doubled dies. If you happen to find such an error, even on a circulated coin, the value can increase dramatically, sometimes reaching into the tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on the rarity of the mistake. Historically, the 1995D quarter is part of the last handful of years before the state quarters program began. Quarters from 1995-1996, 1997, and 1998 all share the classic eagle reverse. And then the design disappeared forever in regular circulation. For that reason, collectors often save rolls of these late 1990s quarters in uncirculated condition as a way to preserve the final issues of the eagle design. Next up, the Lincoln Wheat Penny is one of the most recognized coins in American history, and the 1941 edition marks an interesting point in the series. Today we are looking at the 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny struck at the San Francisco Mint, the version with the S Mint mark, and we will focus on one that is in very fine condition, though it does show some scratches. Even with imperfections, this coin still carries value. Both in history and in today's coin market, the Wheat Penny series first appeared in 1909. Designed by Victor David Brenner to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person instead of symbolic imagery, and it quickly became a collector favorite. The design with Lincoln on the obverse and two wheat stalks on the reverse remained in use until 1958, when it was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial reverse. During its nearly 50-year run, billions of wheat pennies were struck across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. By 1941, the United States was still emerging from the Great Depression and was on the edge of entering World War II. Pennies from this period circulated heavily, and for many Americans, the Lincoln cent was an everyday necessity. That year, the San Francisco Mint struck just over 92 million Lincoln Wheat Pennies with the S Mint mark. While this was a large number, it was still far less than the over 887 million struck in Philadelphia and the 175 million struck in Denver. Because of this, the 1941 S Wheat Penny is scarcer than the Philadelphia issue, though it is still common overall for collectors. Now, let's talk about condition. A coin in very fine condition, often abbreviated as VF, shows moderate wear but still has all the major details visible. On the obverse, you would expect to see Lincoln's portrait, with light wear on the hair above the ear and around the jawline. But the cheek, eye, and overall outline remain sharp. On the reverse, the wheat stalks are still clear, though the fine lines inside may be worn. A VF coin is attractive enough for collectors who want something presentable without paying higher uncirculated prices. However, the scratches mentioned on this example do affect its eye appeal, and that will keep the value closer to the lower end of the price scale. So what is a 1941? SE and wheat penny in very fine condition with some scratches worth in today's market. Most price guides place a VF example at around 20 to 50 cents. Because scratches lower desirability, this coin would likely be closer to 20 cents. It's maybe a bit higher if the marks are light and the overall coin still looks nice. For comparison, a heavily worn 1941 SPN in good condition might sell for around 10 to 15 cents, while higher grades such as extremely fine or about uncirculated can bring closer to $1. Uncirculated examples range from $2 up to about $10 depending on grade and color. Bright red uncirculated coins, graded Ms. -65 or higher, can reach even higher premiums, sometimes in the range of $50 or more at auction. It is also worth mentioning that errors and varieties always catch collector attention. While 1941 does not have a famous double die like the 1955 cent, collectors do search for small varieties such as repunched mint marks on San Francisco issues. If your coin happens to have an RPM, even in VF condition, it could be worth more than the standard market value. The historical context of a 1941 yes penny also adds to its charm. This coin was struck just months before the United States officially entered World War II. It may have been used by families saving every cent, soldiers heading to training, or children buying candy for a penny each. Every scratch and mark on your coin tells the story of its long circulation and the people who handled it over more than 80 years. For collectors, owning a 1941 Yes Lincoln wheat penny is important for completing a full date and mint set. While the Philadelphia version is very common, the San Francisco mint mark adds a bit more interest and challenge, even in VF condition with scratches. This coin represents a solid example of a pre-war Lincoln cent that many collectors would be happy to include in their albums. Next up, the 1996 Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint with the D Mint mark. The coin we're looking at is described as being in good condition with some scratches. At first glance, it may appear to be just a typical piece of change. But like every coin, it carries history, collector context, and a real-world value in today's market. The Washington quarter was originally designed by John Flanagan to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. His portrait graces the obverse, while the reverse shows the heraldic eagle design that was used until 1998. That makes the 1996 quarter one of the last in the long-running Eagle Reverse series before the state. Quarters program started in 1999, which transformed collecting and sparked widespread public interest. The Denver Mint struck over 906 million quarters in 1996, making this one of the highest mintage issues of the series. With nearly a billion produced 1996D quarters are extremely common. Most circulated heavily, and that is exactly what we see with the example here. Good condition. Surface scratches and wear from decades of use. It is important to point out that 1996D quarters were not struck in silver for circulation. These were clad coins composed of a copper core with a copper-nickel outer layer. The only silver Washington quarters of that year were special proof coins made at the San Francisco Mint for collector sets. So, if your coin has D Mint mark and comes from regular circulation, it is clad, not silver. Many people mistakenly think all quarters are silver if they look shiny. But only 1964 and earlier circulation quarters contained 90% silver. When grading a coin, good condition is one of the lower designations on the scale. It means the coin shows heavy wear, with most fine details flattened. On the obverse, Washington's hair and facial details will be worn smooth. The rims may blend into the lettering. On the reverse, the eagle's feathers will be weak, and most of the inner feather lines will no longer be visible. Adding scratches to this already worn condition lowers the collector appeal further. So, what is the value of a 1996D Washington quarter in good condition with scratches? In today's auction market, such a coin would trade for its face value of 25 cents. Circulated examples are too common and too worn to attract premiums from collectors. These coins are usually sold in bulk lots, where dealers group hundreds together and sell them as circulated change. However, the value changes as condition improves. A lightly circulated or about uncirculated 1996D quarter might be worth 30 to 50 cents. Uncirculated mint-state examples begin to draw more interest, with MS-63 coins often selling for around $1, and MS-65 graded coins worth between $5 and $10. The very finest certified examples in MS-67 condition can reach prices over $100 at auctions, because such pristine survivors are scarce compared to the total mintage. Collectors also pay attention to errors and varieties. While the 1996D quarter does not have any major well-known varieties, there are some minor double dies, off-center strikes, and clipped planchettes that have been found. These types of mint errors can increase value significantly, sometimes into the tens or even hundreds of dollars, even if the base coin is circulated. This is why it's always worth carefully examining even common coins. Beyond the numbers, the 1996D quarter has historical importance. It was part of the final years of the Eagle reverse. It's a design that had represented stability on the nation's coinage for over 60 years. Just 3 years later, in 1999, the 50-state quarters program began, and that completely changed how Americans viewed the quarter. Millions of people started collecting coins out of pocket change. And the quarters from the 1990s suddenly became the last of the old design for that reason. Many collectors like to hold on to examples of 1996 quarters, especially in high grades, to complete their sets. Next up, the Lincoln Wheat Penny is one of the most iconic and beloved coins in American numismatics. And the 1958 edition holds a special place as the very last year of the wheat reverse design. Today we are going to talk about the 1958 Lincoln Wheat Penny minted in Philadelphia, the one without a mint mark. And we will focus on an example that is in extra fine condition with some scratches. While this coin may not be a rare treasure worth thousands of dollars, it is still important because of its history, its role as the final wheat penny, and the fact that collectors still pay more than face value for examples in better condition. The story of the Lincoln cent begins in 1909, when Victor David Brenner's design was introduced to celebrate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. For nearly 50 years, from 1909 until 1958, the reverse of the penny displayed two wheat stalks encircling the words 1 cent, which gave the coin its nickname, the Wheat Penny. In 1959, to celebrate Lincoln's 150th birthday, the reverse design was changed to the Lincoln Memorial, ending the long and historic wheat series. That makes 1958 the final year collectors can find a true Lincoln Wheat Penny, which automatically gives it a special significance, even if the coin itself is not especially rare. In 1958, the Philadelphia Mint struck more than 252 million pennies without a mint mark. This was a very large number, which is why these coins are considered common today. Many have survived in circulation, and collectors can easily find them in coin shops, online auctions, or even mixed in with old coin jars. Because of that availability, the value of a circulated 1958 penny is modest. Still, collectors prize it as the last date in the wheat series. And higher grade examples always command more attention and slightly higher prices. Now let's talk about grading. An extra fine coin, often abbreviated XF, shows light wear but still has strong details. On the obverse, Lincoln's portrait will be clear, with only slight flattening on the hair and cheek. The jawline remains distinct, and most of the lettering and date look sharp. On the reverse, the wheat stalks show most of their lines, though the very highest parts may be worn. An XF coin is attractive to collectors because it shows the design fully without being too heavily worn, but it is still affordable compared to uncirculated coins. The scratches mentioned on this particular example do lower its appeal somewhat because collectors prefer clean surfaces. A scratched coin, even in X, might sell for closer to the low end of the value range. So what is a 1958 Lincoln Wheat penny? Without a mint mark in extra fine condition worth in today's market? Price guides suggest that most circulated examples are worth about 3 to 5 cents. An XF coin with scratches is likely worth around 3 cents, maybe slightly higher if the marks are light. For comparison, a 1958 penny in average circulated condition is generally valued at about 2 cents. Coins in about uncirculated condition are usually worth 10 to 20 cents. Uncirculated examples, depending on color and luster, can range from 50 cents to $2 or more. Brilliant red uncirculated coins graded MS65 or higher can sell for much higher premiums, often in the range of $10 to $20 and sometimes more if certified by PCGS or NGC. Proof coins from 1958, which were specially struck for collectors, can reach values of $20 or more depending on condition. Because 1958 was such a high mintage year, the real value lies in top-grade coins. Collectors often look for bright, red, uncirculated pieces to complete their wheat cent sets, and those examples can fetch strong prices. Coins with full red luster are always in demand, because many wheat cents naturally tone to brown over time. That makes original red coins scarcer and more desirable. It is also worth remembering that 1958 does not have any famous major varieties or errors like the 1955 double die cent. But collectors do still search for small die cracks, off-center strikes, and other unusual minting issues. If you happen to find one of these on your coin, even in XF with scratches, it could carry a small premium beyond the normal price, beyond value. The 1958 penny is a piece of history. It was the last wheat cent produced before the switch to the Lincoln Memorial design. That means it represents the closing chapter of nearly 50 years of numismatic tradition. A coin from that year would have circulated during a time of major change in the United States, just before the 1960s began. Every mark and scratch on your coin tells the story of decades of use in the hands of ordinary people. Next up, the Washington quarter has been a familiar sight in American pocket change since 1932, and today we're going to talk about one from the late 20th century, the 1998 Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint. The coin we're focusing on is in dirty condition, with a colored shade and some scratches, and while it may look like just an ordinary piece of change, it still has a place in the story of American coinage. The Washington Quarter Series was first created to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Sculptor John Flanagan designed the obverse, which features Washington's profile, and the reverse that carried the heraldic eagle. This original design was used until 1998. Making the 1998 quarter one of the very last issues to feature the eagle reverse before the 50 State Quarters program launched in 1999. That gives this coin a kind of historical milestone value. Even though its mintage numbers were very high, the Denver Mint produced more than 866 million quarters in 1998, meaning that these coins are extremely common. Most remain in circulation today, though many, like the one we are discussing, show heavy signs of wear, dirt, discoloration, and scratches. For collectors, condition is everything. And the difference between a heavily circulated example and a high-grade mint state coin is dramatic when it comes to value. One important clarification to make is about the composition. Circulation strikes from 1998, including those made in Denver with the D Mint mark, were not silver. They were clad coins made of a copper core with a copper-nickel outer layer. Only special collector versions made at the San Francisco Mint as proof coins were struck in 90% silver that year. So, if you have a 1998 quarter from Denver, like the one described here, it is not a silver coin. Instead, its composition is standard clad, which explains why circulated coins often develop a dark, dull, or colored tone after years of handling. The example in dirty condition with scratches, and discoloration falls into the low end of the grading scale. In numismatic terms, it would be considered a circulated coin in good to very good condition at best, with surface problems that keep it from having much collector appeal. Coins in this state are usually valued only at their face value of 25 cents. At auction, they are almost always sold as part of bulk lots, where dealers move large groups of common circulated quarters together. Now, let's compare the value spectrum for this issue. A circulated 1998D Washington quarter in average condition is worth about 25 cents. In lightly circulated or about uncirculated condition, the value might rise slightly to 35 cents or 50 cents. In mint state condition, however, prices start to improve. MS-63 examples may bring around $1 to $2, while MS-65 coins often sell for $5 to $10. The very finest certified examples, graded MS-67, can reach into the $50 to $100 range depending on auction demand. Errors, varieties, and silver-proof issues are the real drivers of higher value. For collectors, the 1998D quarter is also interesting as part of the broader timeline of U.S. coinage. Being the final year of the eagle, reverse before the state. Quarters began in 1999. It marks the end of an era. Many people saved rolls or bags of 1998 quarters at the time, knowing that the design was about to change. Because of this, uncirculated rolls are still available today and can sometimes be found in auction settings. But circulated examples with damage, like the one we're discussing, remain strictly face value coins. Another thing to consider is the appearance of toning and color changes. While some collectors enjoy rainbow-toned coins or coins with natural patina, most modern quarters with dark dirt, stains, or blackened color are considered undesirable. The scratches further reduce appeal. In auctions, such a coin would almost always sell for 25 cents, and sometimes even less if it were grouped with hundreds of similar pieces. Next, the Lincoln Wheat Penny remains one of the most recognizable and collected coins in American history. And today, we are focusing on the 1942 edition from the Denver Mint, marked with a small d just below the date. This particular coin is in good condition and shows some scratches, which is the type of example most people are likely to encounter when they find one in circulation or in an old coin jar. While it may not be a rare or high-value treasure, it has a fascinating story and still carries value above its face. The Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909. It's designed by Victor David Brenner to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The coin featured Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and 2 wheat stalks on the reverse, a design that would remain in use until 1958, for nearly 50 years. The wheat penny was a part of everyday American life, circulating in massive numbers, and finding its way into nearly every pocket and purse in the country. By 1942, the United States was fully involved in World War II, and coins from this era carry a strong historical connection. The Denver Mint produced just over 206 million Lincoln Wheat Pennies in that year, all made from a bronze composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. Although that sounds like a large number, many of these coins have been lost to time, melted down, or worn away through decades of circulation. Still, compared to earlier years, the 1942D penny is not considered rare, but its wartime history makes it a favorite among collectors. When we talk about condition, a coin in good grade is toward the lower end of the scale. A good condition coin has heavy wear and many fine details have been lost to circulation. On the obverse, Lincoln's portrait may look flat, with very little definition in the hair and facial features. The rims might be weak, and parts of the lettering may blend into the edge. On the reverse, the wheat stalks are visible, but most of the inner lines are worn smooth. When scratches are added on top of this, the coin is considered a problem coin, meaning it has surface issues that lower its collector appeal. So what is a 1942D Lincoln wheat penny in good condition with scratches worth in today's market? Most price guides put its value at around 10 to 20 cents. In fact, circulated examples in the lower grades usually trade for about that amount. The scratches would likely push it toward the lower end of the scale, maybe around 10 cents. While that may not sound like much, it is still 10 times its original face value. And for beginning collectors, coins like this offer an affordable way to connect with history. For comparison, the value climbs as condition improves. A fine-grade example might sell for around 20 to 30 cents. Very fine coins can bring 40 to 50 cents. Extra fine examples often fetch about 75 cents to $1. Once you get into about uncirculated and uncirculated grades, the prices rise higher, with bright mint state coins valued from $2 up to $10, depending on color and luster. The most desirable are red uncirculated examples graded MS65 or better, which can sell for over $20 at auctions. Proof-like specimens and rare varieties may command even more. It is worth noting that collectors also look for errors and varieties in coins from 1942. While the Denver issue does not have any famous major double die varieties, some repunched mint marks and minor striking errors exist. These small details can add to the value if confirmed by professional grading. Services. Even a lower-grade coin with an unusual error can be worth more than its standard price. Beyond price. Every 1942D penny tells a story. Think about the time when it was minted. The United States was in the midst of World War II, and pennies like this circulated during rationing, military buildup, and the sacrifices of the home front. Just 1 year later, in 1943, the U.S. Mint would change the composition of the penny to steel coated with zinc, saving copper for the war effort. That makes the 1942 penny one of the last traditional bronze cents before that dramatic change. Next up, the Washington quarter has been one of the most recognizable coins in American history, and the year 1965 marks one of the biggest turning points for this series. Today, we're looking at the 1965 Washington quarter, a coin struck without a mint mark in very fine condition with some scratches. While this coin might look ordinary, it carries a fascinating story, and its place in U.S. coinage history makes it an interesting piece for collectors. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor the bicentennial of George Washington's birth. Designed by John Flanagan, the obverse features the profile of Washington, while the reverse shows a heraldic eagle with outstretched wings. For decades, the design remained the same, and the coins were struck in 90% silver and 10% copper, making them not just useful in commerce, but also valuable for their precious metal content. But 1965 was different. Rising silver prices in the early 1960s created a nationwide coin shortage. People began hoarding silver dimes, quarters, and half dollars, knowing their melt value was higher than their face value. To solve this crisis, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965, which eliminated silver from the quarter and dime. Beginning in 1965, the U.S. Mint struck quarters from a clad composition and inner copper core with outer layers of copper nickel. That means the 1965 quarter was the very first clad quarter, and from that year forward, no circulation strike quarters were made of silver. This change makes the 1965 quarter historically significant. It represents the end of silver circulating coinage and the beginning of the modern clad era. While many people today mistakenly think that 1965 quarters are silver because of their vintage appearance, they are actually clad. Only quarters dated 1964 or earlier contain 90% silver. The 1965 Washington quarter was struck in huge numbers. More than 1.8 billion pieces were minted, and none carry mint marks, regardless of whether they were produced in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. To discourage hoarding during the transition, the mint intentionally left off mint marks between 1965 and 1967. So if your 1965 quarter has no mint mark, that's exactly how it was made. Now, let's talk about condition. The example we're looking at is described as being in very fine condition with some scratches. In numismatic grading terms, very fine means the coin shows moderate wear from circulation. Washington's portrait will have clear outlines, though much of the finer hair detail will be worn flat. On the reverse, the eagle is still visible, but the feather detail is weak. Scratches are considered damage and reduce the coin's eye appeal, though they don't change the basic grade. A very fine coin with scratches is considered collectible but not high value. So what is a 1965 quarter in very fine condition worth in today's market? Since these coins are clad and not silver, their base value is 25 cents. In circulated grades, including very fine, most 1965 quarters sell for face value. Collectors only pay a premium for higher grade examples in about uncirculated or mint state condition. A lightly circulated coin might bring 30 to 50 cents, while uncirculated examples can range from $1 to $5. The very highest graded mint state coins, especially those graded MS66 or higher, with strong luster and few marks, can bring over $100 at auctions. In addition, collectors pay attention to varieties and errors. The most famous error for the 1965 quarter is the rare silver planchette mistake. A few 1965 quarters were accidentally struck on leftover 90% silver planchettes meant for 1964 coins. These are extremely valuable, often selling for several $1,000s, even in circulated grades. Another collectible version is the 1965 Special Mint Set Quarter, which features a sharper strike and proof-like surfaces. But for a regular clad circulation strike with scratches, the value remains at face. Even though the coin we're discussing has only modest market value, it still carries tremendous historical importance. It marks the very first year of clad coinage in the United States, a change that ended over 170 years of silver circulating coinage. Every 1965 quarter in circulation is a reminder of that dramatic shift in U.S. monetary history. To summarize, a 1965 Washington quarter without a mint mark, in very fine condition with scratches, is worth about 25 cents in today's market. Higher grade uncirculated examples can bring a few dollars, and rare errors like silver planchette strikes can be worth thousands. While your coin may not be rare, it represents a pivotal moment in U.S. coinage history and is an essential piece for anyone building a complete Washington quarter collection.